Hey guys, Kate here. Welcome back to Planning Collective. This week I want to talk about using Pinterest as a tool to help plan your wedding. We're going to get into the good, the bad, and the not so ugly because it is Pinterest after all, and everything over there is always really pretty. So first, before we get into it, I want to say that I ultimately do love the platform Pinterest offers. I highly recommend that my couples use it if they haven't already started working on a Pinterest board for their wedding. But there are some things that I want to make sure are clarified with couples that are planning a wedding because it can be an overwhelming task to use Pinterest for wedding plans. One of the biggest things to note is that many of the photo pins that you're going to see on Pinterest are styled shoots. This means that it is a collaboration of vendors working together to create a mock setup and not an actual wedding. So there's nothing really wrong with that. In fact, I love a good styled shoot, but there are some things that can come into play that would make a big difference if you knew it wasn't an actual event, but rather a styled shoot. Before we get into that, let me tell you how you can spot a styled shoot on Pinterest versus an actual wedding. So if you see maybe just one reception table that is set up away from anything else, maybe it's out in an open field or an empty ballroom, you don't see a dance floor or maybe a table jack where the staff is going to be collecting the plates. You don't see any of the real life things that you need to create an event, or maybe there's just one setting for a couple, but no other guest tables, a ceremony site, but no actual guest chairs. Those are indicators that it's a styled shoot. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with styled shoots. There are some beautiful images and inspiration that can come from them, but I just want to make sure you're aware of the differences. So as you're looking at pictures and pinning things that you want to use to help build your wedding plans, you know what some of the differences and distinctions are. So the first thing to consider when we are looking at a pin is if it is a styled shoot, vendors are often using their upgraded top of the line items, services, or products for these styled shoots. Nothing wrong with that, but typically it means that that is going to be costly or maybe not available times however many guests you have if you have a large guest count. We've done styled shoots with very specific tables, flatware, or certain items that we can get one or two of, but to get for a full wedding reception might be pretty tricky. So if you see something that you love within a styled shoot photo, just make note of what it is. You might have to make some modifications to make it fit your budget or availability. If you're looking at a styled shoot photo that was taken at your venue, or maybe a venue that's really similar to yours, just be aware that the layout and setup might not be realistic for an actual event. A lot of times when setting up for styled shoots, we don't need to consider the actual flow of the guests, where's the dance floor gonna go, how are wait staff gonna get in between tables, the lighting could be very different. When you're doing a styled shoot, you don't need to think about the function of the event or the space, but rather just how pretty the image looks. So if, again, you are looking at a photo or something that has taken place at your venue or something similar to your venue, talk to the event manager or your wedding planner about the logistics, and you guys can work out something that works, hopefully, to pull in the inspiration, but also make sure that the flow of the event is still functional. One of the biggest giveaways to me of a styled shoot photo is whether or not there are dinner plates. So for an actual wedding or event, most of the time the guests' dinner plates are not at the table when they arrive into the reception. They're going to get those either at the buffet, the food stations, or the wait staff is going to bring them in with their dinner service. If you see a table that is fully set with a dinner plate, bread plate, salad, everything is there, it's most likely a styled shoot unless it is family style and the staff bring everything to the table. So again, nothing wrong with that, but just know your table will most likely not look as finished as a fully set table will. If you want to get that look, you can use your napkin or a charger to create a place setting at each spot for the guests. Okay, here is a word of warning for you guys. Number 4 is please, please, please do not put any glass containers or candles down the center of your aisle. Now, I absolutely love the look of an aisle lined with candles. I am candle obsessed. So for me to say don't do candles anywhere means I am very serious about this. The problem is I can almost guarantee that somebody is going to knock over either the glass container or the candle with wax. And this is going to happen within 10 or 15 minutes of your ceremony because that's when the guests start to arrive. I have no idea why, but people just do not see them. I would say at least 80% of the weddings where we've attempted to have candles down the aisle, something has happened. And again, it's always within 20 minutes or so of the actual ceremony taking place, and it can be a mess. We had a ceremony in the dark at one point where it was only candlelight, and I'm not even kidding, a lady just knocked over a 4-foot tall candle. She just didn't see it. People get caught up in conversation and saying hellos, and they just don't see it. Again, I can't fully explain it, but it is a huge risk. Now, if you like the idea of lights down the aisle, you can use flameless candles. Do not put them in a glass container, but you can use those lined along the aisle. If they get knocked over, not a big deal. You can put them in lanterns if you want them to be in something. I haven't had any success finding nice looking plastic vases, but if you do find some of those, I would highly recommend that. Another alternative is I've seen some beautiful Pinterest images of strand lighting going down the aisle, and that is beautiful too. But again, a very big trip hazard for your guests, depending on the logistics of your space and where you plug them into. Now, I will also want to remind you that most ceremonies take place earlier in the day. So you're most likely not going to get the same visual effect of a dark room illuminated by all of these beautiful candles anyway, if your ceremony is earlier in the day. So don't put a ton of effort into these flameless candles or finding an alternative. If your ceremony is earlier in the day, see if you can create that look later on in the evening, maybe in your reception, in a way that would be a little bit safer for your guests so there's no trip hazards. And the final and usually most troubling issue that comes along with styled shoots being a majority of the wedding pins is that styled shoots don't have to think about a budget. I've never participated in one where we've had any kind of budget because it is all voluntary participation through the vendors. Each vendor is simply volunteering their products, services, or time. And so we're not thinking about how realistic it would be to put together that table or that setup times a whole wedding reception. So you might be looking at one table that would cost $600 or $700 to do in real life if the vendors were not just simply donating their time. And if you times that by however many guest tables you're going to need or to fill up the space within your venue, if we're looking at like a small flower wall, but in your space, it would really need to be 3 or 4 times that size. The breakdown is going to be a little bit unrealistic for most budgets. So not having a price point connected with a lot of these photos can be super disappointing for couples when they actually price it together and realize how expensive their wedding would be if they were to try to replicate one of the photos that they found on Pinterest. Okay, so now that I've spent all this time complaining about Pinterest and warning you of all these things, why do I still love the platform and encourage my couples to use it? So the biggest reason I love it is that it helps me stay on the same page with all of my clients. When I have somebody describe to me their wedding, their colors, their style, I might be picturing something very different with the words that they're telling me. But if they show me a picture, we're all on the same page. So it really helps everybody to have the same idea and concept in our head as we're visioning things than if we were to just go off of words in a conversation alone. So I'm not sure about you, but when a lot of my couples will start the planning process, especially when it comes into design, they really don't know where to start. And so using Pinterest and starting with grabbing a few photos of things that you like really can help get the ball rolling. If you show your vendors, your design team, your florist, whoever it might be, a few of the photos and have that initial conversation, they can generally start piecing some things together. So Pinterest is a great starting point for those that don't know where to begin. And if you're really lost, just start putting in some wedding words. Indoor wedding, ballroom wedding, outdoor wedding. What are some things that you would want to use to describe your wedding? Even if you're not sure what that means from a visual standpoint, start typing in some of those things into Pinterest. And before too long, you're going to find some images that catch your eye. And we're going to get into that next. So regarding the budget and pricing when it comes to your wedding, let's say you found a styled shoot photo, or maybe it was a real life wedding photo, but the cost of that table or centerpiece or whatever it might be is just way out of your budget to do for your full wedding. You can take the inspiration from that photo and maybe upgrade just the head table or sweetheart table, or maybe you use that inspiration to create something with a lower cost floral, or maybe you can find a linen or something that is not quite as expensive or elaborate as what you see in the photo, but still gives you a similar vibe or feel. So you can really use Pinterest to start with that inspiration. Again, maybe use one or two things from the photo, but not have to go fully overboard and replicate everything times your full wedding reception. Now, with that in mind, what I always recommend is as you are liking and pinning photos, make a brief note in the description or the comments about what it is in that photo that you like. When I sit down with my couples, I might see the first thing I see in one of the photos might be the beautiful pink flowers, but they really pinned that because they love the chair or the table. Maybe they like the lighting in the background, but I didn't see that first. So if you jot down that note, then the vendors that you're working with will know what it is about that photo that you like, and of course what you don't like. Because if you hate those pink flowers, but that's what I saw first, that's important for me to know too as I'm looking at this photo. My clients love the lighting in this image, but we're staying clear from what these florals look like. So as you're pinning things and looking through and discovering what you like and don't like, jot those notes down so in 3-4 months when you go back to look at your Pinterest board, you can remember what it was about that image that you really liked and what sparked you to pin that to begin with. One final tip for you is to make sure to follow your vendors, follow your venue, and follow all of your other vendors if they have a Pinterest account. This helps, of course, for them to feel a little bit more connected. They'll have access to be able to view your board if it's not a secret board, but also it will allow you to see their work, what you like and what you don't like about it, and you can have those conversations as the wedding date approaches. Now, when I say what you don't like, obviously, use that sparingly, but let's say your photographer is posting a lot of photos at a location that maybe they like to go to a lot in your city, but you just don't like it. You can say, hey, by the way, we don't want to go there, or we don't really like this lovey-dovey photo setup. Can we steer more towards these images that you have? So it allows you to get more familiar with your vendors and your venue's work, so that as you get closer to finalizing your details, you're a little bit more familiar with their typical style, so you can embrace what you love and avoid what you don't. So those are my tips on how you can best use Pinterest to plan your wedding. So again, don't be overwhelmed or feel too nervous to try it. Just be inspired and stay realistic, and it can be a great tool for you. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next week.